Hello and welcome back to the Outdoor Station, and this particular video, which is focusing on one of my favourite shelters, the Luxe Hex Peak, which came out in early 2014. Now this has proved to be an exceedingly popular tent and selling, well, many hundreds in the UK. And the people who have been using them have said, given it the very big thumbs up. An ideal solo shelter, fantastic value for money when you look at other things that are on the market. But I think rather than have me waffle away, let's take a look at it in detail, pop the shelter up, and you can see what you get for your money. This is the Luxe Hex Peak. It's proved to be an extremely popular tent in 2014, and it's easy to see why. Made from siliconized nylon, it's a lovely roomy tent for one person with plenty of vestibule area. It gets erected, or can be erected, with two walking poles linked together, which I'll show you later, or a specific pole. It weighs, as I say, 1.2 kilos. The fly is about the 600 gram mark, the inner is 500 grams, and the pegs and the straps make up the rest of it. So what I'm going to do to sort of give you an idea of space in this, rather than erect it all in one go as you would do normally, I'm just going to erect the inner nest first so you can see what size person it suits. Being a slightly taller person, it's just on the edge of my space, but once I'm inside it, you'll see that for yourself. So I'm going to pop up the inner, and then we can have a quick look at that in close-up. You can tell straight away how roomy this shelter is going to be, and obviously I'm sure you'll guess straight away why it's been so popular. This is half of the shelter, so you have this half, which is your sleeping area, and you have the other half as a vestibule to sort your gear out and do cooking or whatever. I'll get into it in a second, and you'll see how much space there is, but just keep in mind that I'm a 6'2" person. The full width of that, I've got a tape measure down there at the moment, is 2.2 meters, to give you an idea of the actual amount of space. What I've found from experience and talking to people that have bought this is that if you're 6 foot or under, it's a very, very comfortable tent. If you're as tall as I am, it's just starting to get a little bit too close, which you'll see in a second. The material it's made from is obviously lightweight nylon material. You've got a good solid waterproof base, very, very fine Midge-proof netting, that's the top part, and then the bottom third is nylon material that obviously stops the cold drafts coming through. So that makes it a very, very useful tent. Obviously, the thing about Luxe tents, or a lot of Luxe design tents, is Michael, the designer, has designed it so that the inners can be dropped down. What this means in reality is, obviously, as long as it's not a Midge day, is that once you've prepared your sleeping area with your sleeping bag and the rest of your gear inside there, you can actually just unhook it from the top of the tent and drop it down and sit on it, which then gives you this huge area, as you'll see later on, for space. Now, the height of that pole, which I'm just using for demonstration purposes, isn't the height of the actual shelter itself. The shelter height usually is about 130, 135, which is about there, which you'll see when I've actually erected the tent finally. Just gives you an idea of what you can do with the walking pole as well, because these two walking poles are linked together with one of the backpacking light links here, and that makes for a very, very rigid pole that's obviously good for supporting shelters. But let me just get inside it now to give you an idea of actually how much space you've got. There's good floor area in there, and as I say, just keep in mind how tall I am. So once I get in and lie down straight on the ground, you can see my feet are just protruding the material, and my head's got a bit of space at this end. Now, that works fine for when you've got a thin sleeping mat, a Pro Light, or just one of the old foam mattings. But when you're looking at something like the Neo Air or the thicker sleeping mats, 2.5 centimeters or thick a couple of inches, especially during winter, it obviously pushes your body, my head and my feet further up, and then that starts to give you a bit of problems potentially with soak through on a wet and windy night. So my face and my feet are against the material. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to pop up the outer shelter around it, and then you can see how it all looks complete. So there you have the outer skin now put on the inner nest that we were in a second ago. What I do want to say straight away is this actually is a demo tent that we've loaned out to various people, and somewhere along its journey, for some reasons, people have changed the outer cords. So the thick cord that they put on isn't the one that comes with the tent, and forgive how messy it looks. I've only just realised it as I put the tent up, so forgive that, the bright yellow cordage. Anyway, let's look at the stability of the tent. Hexagonal shape, really, really good for shedding wind. So again, another reason why it's been so popular. It will take a lot of pressure and shed the wind around the outside. If you're worried about stability, you have an additional 5 guy points all the way around the outside of the shelter. That will bolt it down to the ground. And if you're a bushcrafter or somebody that perhaps wants to have a shelter and hang it from a tree to save the actual height of the using a pole for whatever else, it's got a nice juicy tab at the top there which you can use to hang from a tree. But straight away you can see from the point I was making earlier on just how much space you have inside here now. The other thing is the door, a generous door. It's a J-zip with a double-ended zip, so you can undo the zip and vent the door from the top to give you even more smooth throughput of air. The vent here, there is a stiffener that holds the vent open. So even when the door is closed right down, if it is bad weather conditions, you've got a stiffener there for ventilation. But you can see straight away just how much space you have inside here. We have the sleeping area, which I've already got into, plenty of space for one, and you've got the same amount of space this side of the pole. Now, as I said to you, one of the key things about the Luxe tents is, on the whole, the majority of them, you're unable to unclip the inner, which I'll just do to give you an idea of how much space you have. There's a nice little adjuster here that allows you to put the tension on the inner as much as you want to, and then a simple little hook, and then that just drops down, so the inner is now on the floor. So if my bedding was inside there, I don't have to sit here outside of the inner tent. I can use the whole width of the tent. So I've got plenty of space. So should you be in a situation where you don't have to use the inner, the weather's on your side and you want to use it as a tarp tent, you've got a lovely sheltered area here. It'll take a lot of pressure, a lot of wind pressure, and shed the weather, and it'll sleep 2 people, or you and a dog, or perhaps even a couple of small children. It'll be great fun. The thing about hexagonal tents, as I've said before, is that they seem to have a lot of character, a lot of atmosphere, and certainly when you go to campsites or go wild camping, they seem to attract attention quite a lot, and it's a great conversation starter. The other thing I didn't mention, it is siliconized nylon fabric, and therefore it isn't seam sealed, so you may have to seam seal it. It does come with a small tube of seam sealant. What I found from experience is that it didn't need it. I've had it out, as I say, this has been a demo tent, but I've actually had this out and used it myself in the pretty wet, miserable winter that we've had in the beginning of 2014, and it didn't leak at all. But if you do need to seam seal it, do have a look at the Backpacking Light website. It'll tell you where you would be best advised to seam seal it, because different types of seams need to be sealed on a different side of the material. So a certain type of seam would be put the seam sealant inside, the other side of the seam on the outside. It's a bit of a complicated one to quickly do in a video, but as I said, from experience, it didn't leak, and if I was going to seam seal it, I'd probably only do the horizontal areas, these bits up here, where the tab is at the top, and the tabs, and possibly the little upstands on the inside of the inner. But I think you can see now why it has been such a popular tent, and I'm sure it will be continue to do so.
Indeed, an extremely popular tent. That's the Hex Peak's been 2014, offering a good fine balance between value for money and also features. So let's just have a look at those features once again. As I say, siliconized ripstop nylon, so it does come with some seam sealant, but you might want to buy another tube if you really want to go to town on it. But I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. As I say, that particular one I have used in several days continuous rain, leaving it up and to see if it leaked at all, and it didn't. So that's best done with a bit of experimentation. The weight's very respectable, 600 grams for the fly. The inner nest, as you saw, 495. The various pegs. There's a bit of webbing, which you can see on that photograph. You don't actually need that webbing. It's there purely to make sure when you initially pitch the tent, you don't pitch the sides too far apart. So obviously if you use everything, total of 1.2 kilos, but you can obviously save a bit of weight on that, making it just over a kilo and a very respectable shelter. The sleeping area, as you saw from my height, what we tend to suggest to people is really if you're under 6 foot, 6 foot or under, it's a very comfortable space. If you're over 6 foot, it starts getting a bit cramped, which is a great shame. But we'll see what Michael in Luxe brings out in 2015. There's a rumour that he might be bringing out a slightly bigger version, which would be fantastic. Anyway, pack size, as you can see, 43 by 12 centimetres. So, as we say, an excellent shelter. And of course, the shelter is available at backpackinglight.co.uk in the UK. So do check the website out for availability. I think that pretty well brings everything to an end. I hope that gives you a bit more flavour for that particular shelter, and we'll be back soon with more videos. Thanks for watching. We are having that graphic again. We won't do that. We'll press another button and we'll try again. Thanks for watching.
This machine will have eyes, ears, and a voice.